What's happening, Internet fam? So I've been really bothered lately about the situation with the George Floyd thing, and I watched the Dave Chappelle video last night on YouTube, and great video. Dave Chappelle's obviously a very thoughtful, intelligent man, and I enjoy his stuff every time. But I've been really bothered about the idea of heroes, about who we make heroes, how we make them heroes, and why they're heroes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, heroes. Now, my main premise here for this video is that there are no legitimate heroes in 2020. Most of the heroes that we have on corporate media are not in fact heroes, but are managed descent. I'm talking about Noam Chomsky, I'm talking about Alex Jones, I'm talking about most of the people you see on the news who are talking about things that like the population's like, yeah, I think Jordan Peterson's probably managed descent. I think Jordan Peterson says a lot of things that a lot of people really agree with and really enjoy listening to. However, I think he's like some kind of East Coast liberal and doesn't mean any of it. That's my guess. One of the heroes that I hear people talk about all the time is Gandhi. Now, Gandhi has numerous problems as a hero. For one, he wasn't all that successful. Maybe he liberated India from the UK, maybe he didn't. There's a lot of evidence that he was working with the British government the entire time and actually undermined the real hero, Bhagat Singh. I'll show you a picture of Bhagat Singh in a second. Gandhi also was rumored to have had many sexual relationships with underage women, said a lot of things that many people consider extremely racist. There's just a lot of reasons why I think Gandhi isn't a real hero and was actually working for the British government the whole time. Here's an image of Bhagat Singh, who was the real hero of the Indian Revolution. He was an atheist and a very profound thinker. If you read any of his writings, very interesting and intelligent man. And he was definitely executed by the British government or the British proxy government in India and sold out by Gandhi. Gandhi actually had an opportunity to stop his execution and did not do so because, as I'm positing, I believe Gandhi was managed descent the entire time. Similarly, Martin Luther King. A lot of people are all about Martin Luther King, and he gave some great speeches. He was obviously a highly intelligent guy, and said a lot of the right things. I mean, a lot of people, gravitated towards what he said. He said it with a lot of gravitas. He was obviously a great public speaker, but there's a lot of evidence that Martin Luther King was in fact managed descent, that he was working for the government the entire time, and that he was only doing the bare minimum for civil rights as opposed to some real heroes. The thing that kind of got me down the Martin Luther King path on this is many of the interviews with Malcolm X. There are several interviews where Malcolm X talks about the fact that Martin Luther King was on government payroll, that he was getting paid to do what he was doing, and that in fact his intentions and efforts were not legitimate and justified, and that he wasn't in fact a hero, but he was, basically a deep state actor who was working to co-opt a movement that was going to happen with or without Martin Luther King. The racial inequality was already something that was on everybody's radar, and it was already something that was happening, and that basically he was a way to slow it down or make it go in the direction that the deep state or the government or whoever's making these decisions decides. And the question is, who is deciding who these heroes are? I don't know. I really don't know. You could be a conspiracy theorist and make all kinds of conjecture and posit a lot of different suspects, but it's very clear to me that actual, genuine, bona fide heroes now don't really exist, and that most of the heroes we have now are some kind of implanted, deep space, limited hangout, managed descent. That's certainly true with most celebrities. I don't think any of these celebrities have any kind of like ethical or fundamental positive attributes that we should be hero worshiping. Most of them are actually really terrible people. The whole thing with Lady Gaga and the spirit cooking and Marina Abramovic and all that, it's just this is really rotten stuff. And these are the people that corporate media gives us to look up to listen to share an opinion with. And I think it's very telling. And I'm certainly not the first one to posit this. I mean, the writing is on the wall for a lot of these heroes who generally, weren't heroes. They didn't act as heroes. Now, I think there are some genuine heroes. I think JFK was a genuine hero. And what happened to JFK? I think John Lennon was a genuine hero. What happened to John Lennon? I think Ron Paul was a genuine hero, and Ron Paul, if you remember, in 2012 was completely ripped off at the Republican National Convention. They never gave him a chance to speak. They never gave a chance for his superdelegate to even get off the bus. I think Michael Collins was a genuine hero, and of course he was assassinated. And then Eamon de Oliveira ended up taking over the Irish Revolution, and pretty much, conceding a lot of ground that Michael Collins had already gained during the Irish Revolution. So again, here's a real hero, and he was murdered. And now, of course, we've got this new hero, George Floyd. George Floyd was ostensibly murdered by police officers. There's a lot of evidence that shows that this might have been like some kind of staged media event, maybe some kind of false flag, in order to incite the violence and riots, etc. I don't know. Again, do your own research on that. I am not always a conspiracy theorist, but I always have an open mind about different conspiracy theories because so many of them have proven to be true. It's very interesting to me that George Floyd is now this hero for everybody. I mean, this is just some regular guy. He had a little bit of a criminal past. He definitely was on different kind of drugs and stuff. I mean, this isn't some kind of paragon of virtue. And yet now he's the hero because ostensibly this police officer murdered him. Now, again, I don't condone police brutality. I don't condone police forces at all. I think everybody should have their own gun on them and defend themselves. I don't think we should be outsourcing our personal security to government agents such as the police. I think that's ludicrous and unconstitutional, personally. But I think it's very interesting the media has chosen to anoint him to be a person to look up to. If you watch the Dave Chappelle video last night, this is kind of like, I've been thinking about all of this for a while now, but after watching the Dave Chappelle video, I really started to get to think about, okay, what is a hero? Why don't we have any good heroes? And he pointed out some very interesting things last night in his show. One of the things that Dave Chappelle brought up on his special that I watched last night is this guy here, John Crawford III, a genuinely good guy who was murdered by the police for no good reason whatsoever. Probably likely just because he's black. I guess that does happen. Although police murder people of every race, it's very interesting. When you give government power over you, they usually use it for things that aren't good. And that's certainly the case in the case of the police. I mean, police brutality, police violence, police murder is something that's an epidemic for everybody in the country, not just black people, although maybe they're singled out at a higher rate than other people. But the police are constantly murdering people all over the country of every race. They actually murder more white people than black people, but of course there are more white people in the country than black people, so that's why many people are saying, oh, Black Lives Matter and that this is a race issue. I don't think it is a race issue that much. I think this is mostly a police brutality issue, and the simple fact is police very frequently beat their own families as well. Domestic violence for people in uniform is a very high stat, and it's led by the police, and then secondly by the military. And I think they put firefighters in that category just to make the numbers lower overall so that the police and the military don't look so bad. But the simple fact is there's a lot of domestic violence for men in uniform, and police are leading the pack on that. Police are often very violent in their own homes, not just at work. And now you've got a lot of people calling for defunding the police. I think that's a great idea. I think we should defund the police. But I think that also every American citizen should be able to open carry a pistol in a holster on their belt. I think you would see every type of crime dramatically reduce if we did that. One thing that a lot of Americans in particular are very ignorant is about the statistics regarding gun ownership and violent crime. In the UK, New Zealand, and Australia, they've already banned guns, pretty much effectively completely banned guns. And this is the result. You can see as the gun ownership decreases, violence goes up. This is violent crime and this is gun crime right here. As less people own guns, there's more violence, especially towards women and children. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to say, oh, guns make me feel bad, guns make me nervous, I don't like guns, let's just get rid of them. But the reality is when you get rid of guns, you're making many more people victims. Most of the guns in this country have been used for defensive purposes. Way more than for violent crime, for murder, for any of the things, suicide even. And that's another thing too. A lot of the gun crime statistics that we do get are padded hugely by suicide. Now, are people without access to guns going to stop committing suicide, or are they going to find some other way to commit suicide? The chances are they're going to commit suicide some other way. They're not just going to not kill themselves because they didn't have access to a gun. And of course, here's another stat that you're not getting from the UK or from the mainstream media, who clearly wants everybody disarmed for some reason, is that in the UK, They got rid of guns way back in the 80s or something. And since then, of course, gun crime has pretty much stayed the same the whole time. But knife crime has gone way up. So, I mean, okay, so we're going to get rid of guns and then more people get stabbed? How is this an improvement? I don't get it. And of course, it's not like that if we disarmed everybody in the United States, it wouldn't be the first time a population has been disarmed. Many populations throughout history have been disarmed, mostly with disastrous effect. The Native American people were disarmed. What happened to them? The Chinese were disarmed right before Mao Zedong. What happened to them? The Armenians were disarmed by the Turks. Huge genocide there. Many different nations in the Soviet Union were disarmed. Big genocide from Stalin there. Almost every population that gets disarmed has a huge genocide committed against them very shortly thereafter. So I really strongly recommend that we here in America keep our guns. And who are your heroes? Are you sure they're genuine? Are they just some kind of corporate media puppet? Be very careful about thinking who your heroes are, why they're your heroes, and whether or not they succeeded. I believe one of the big motivations behind promoting these peaceful heroes like Gandhi or Martin Luther King was that they were peaceful in and of itself. Obviously, the powers that be are very scared of violent revolution, but I don't believe there's ever any kind of revolution that's successful that isn't violent. You can say I'm wrong, you can disagree, you can say, oh, that doesn't feel good, I don't like that, but you got to look at reality for what it is. You can't just determine reality based on what you like or what makes you comfortable or what makes you feel safe and happy. Because I can't imagine or remember any kind of revolution that happened peacefully. I believe that Gandhi was actually working for the British government the whole time, so his peaceful revolution was totally false. I think Martin Luther King was working for the American government the entire time, so his peaceful revolution was entirely false and staged. And those are the only two peaceful revolutions that that I can even think of that come up commonly. So, but I'd be very curious if you could, if anybody watching this can cite an example of a revolution that happened peacefully without arms. I'd be very curious to hear about it, because I've never heard of one in all of human history. It seems like every revolution is either violent or it's fake. And that's what I'm saying about Gandhi, that's what I'm saying about Martin Luther King, and a lot of these other heroes that you're supposed to hero worship on corporate media. There's a lot of fake, bad acting, managed dissent, limited hangout, call it what you want. Be very careful about who your authorities are, be very careful about who your heroes are, and be skeptical. Be skeptical of everything. All right, that's it for me today, Internet fam. I hope you all have some great heroes that are real and in your real life, like family members, somebody in your community, maybe somebody you work with that you can look up to. I have some heroes like that, and I'm very thankful for them in my life. So thank you, heroes.